the audience, and Diana and Leslie at the back there have taken out the duplicates. So it turns out we actually have about 11 things that you all want to know. And you're going to get them in random order. I'm going to start with Glenn and work my way down the mayoral candidates. So Glenn, your question is, would you support a temporary moratorium on development construction, new multifamily, pending a study of how this is affecting the quality of life for existing DNV residents? 1 minute.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Simple answer, no, I would not. I'm concerned that if we put any moratorium in any further development that would create affordable housing, we will be further behind the 8 ball. Stopping the development right now of affordable housing is one of the worst things that we could do. It'll mean our employers cannot get employees. We're going to lose people that are no longer going to work here because they don't want to do the commute. And we're going to lose a generation that's not going to want to come back here because we're not providing the housing they need. So to answer the question, to the point, I would not support that.
Hey, Mike Little, your question is, what is your definition of affordable housing? 1 minute.
Well, right now, if I'm a developer in North Vancouver, it's whatever I want it to be, right? What the municipality needs to do is commit to one definition, and if a developer says that it's providing affordable housing, it had better exceed that definition, and that's not currently the case. We have some developers that are, sorry Keith, I'm moving around in here. There you go. We have some developers that are trying to come in at 10% below and saying that it's affordable, but they're building premium luxury units. And so it's still $700 a square foot that they're trying to market them at. That's not affordable. What it should be tied to, and my preference, I think that we should be moving more strongly towards the CMHC Level 2 guidelines, which says that it's about 30% of gross household income after certain expenses are deducted. And the problem that we have is that it shouldn't be a North Vancouver gross household number, it should be a Metro Vancouver gross household number, because the people that we're trying to get off the lineups, they're not sitting in a situation where they have a North Vancouver average.
Okay, Evans Barzilai, your question is, what is your position on cost sharing with for the new Harry Jerome Centre?
Cost sharing. I understand that there is an issue. Evans Barzilai, Canada from here. I understand there is an issue. In the past, the city of North Vancouver did not share expenses with us, and we built stuff without their share. And I think this needs to be changed. So I think that we need to work collaboratively with everybody, all the governments, all our neighbors, and I think situations like this should be shared. We cannot kind of stop our kids from going or ourselves from going and to like, yeah. So yeah, so we share those facilities, we should equally share with the cost. Thank you.
Ashamani, your question is, why don't we stop the morning and afternoon school pickup drop-off by having school buses?
School buses, fabulous idea. So I think this is one of those questions where you have to work together with the school board. You have to work together with partners and other levels of government to figure out how we can actually pay for that service. I'm proudly running with the candidate for school board trustee, Devin, who's in the crowd. These are the relationships we need to build. Without collaborations, we're not going to be able to figure out the solutions. I think it's a great idea. I think we also need safe routes to school. I think kids ideally should be able to walk, roll, or bike to school. But I think if a bus is what it's going to take, then let's figure out how to make that happen.
Thank you. Carlene, you get this like omnibus question. Why is it acceptable to raise taxes? Do we need to always increase? You say the transit is bad, but what would you do and when? Does livable mean more money or just better ideas? What does it mean?
Isn't that like 6 questions? Yeah, pick one.
Just pick one, Carly.
Okay. Wow. So, into this, I don't even know where to start. I think you say transit is bad, but what would you do and when? I don't say transit is bad. I would love to have more transit in my area. I have nieces that work at the local Save On Foods, and they're catching the bus home late at night, and sometimes, you know, their shifts till midnight, and they have to find a way home. I think we need to work better on transit. We have to consider the people that are catching transit. It's because they don't choose not to have a car and expenses, or they're not in a place to be able to own a car and the expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Peter T-Van, here's your question. What is the plan for the Handsworth track when it is torn down? There is no other regulation track in North Van.
Well, I don't know why that question came to me. I'm not an expert on Handsworth. Very forward, you know a ton about that. So I can't say that I know about the Handsworth track, except that I know we're due to lose it, and that is a big problem, especially for our track and field community here on the North Shore. So we need to find a new home. I know that the opinion has been offered that there is a lot of flat ground that is conducive to this in Norgate, and maybe that's a possible home, is Norgate Park. I know it's a big issue, but I don't know what the current plan is. I look forward to learning about that. Peter T. Van, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Greg Robbins, your question is it's a short one. It's not really a question, but I guess someone would like you to speak about cycling routes.
Cycling routes. What a great question. I am actually wearing a belt made out of a bike tire. Pardon? Cycling routes, they're critical and important. We need them to alleviate traffic. They are good for our health. They allow us to get around without exhaust, parking. There are so many benefits to it. In terms of routes, one of the things I wrote about on my website last week was a lack of consistency with bike routes. I find it difficult and challenging as a driver to know what I'm supposed to do. There's a green one, and then there's bollards, and then there's this other thing, and it stops and it goes up on the sidewalk. So I can tell you that there's confusion from the driver's perspective, but I'm sure from a biker's perspective it can also be tricky when bike lanes end or when they are obscured by, you know, whatever, a construction. We need to have consistency. If you've spent any time in Europe or even Montreal, there's a very easy way to get around. It's very predictable, and bikes have a place, and I believe that they really do deserve a place here. Check the bell tones.
I was wondering if you're going to say it was made out of a cyclist, but I actually Samir, I'm actually good. This is. You can choose to answer this question. They're coming random, so that's why they're random. Last spring, council voted down sport field upgrades inter-river. Why? What will you do to support new sports fields?
I love sports. Growing up here, like I said before, done all of my sporting and learning everything here. That issue was near and dear to the heart. So Inter-River is already getting one artificial field, and they want to add a second one. But in order to do that, that would require tearing down essentially much of the forest of which Linmore School, and it backs up essentially onto the highway and Lynn Creek. So from my understanding is that the forest was preserved for the neighborhood and the community there in Linmore. We need to always find the right balance on council in order to address these issues properly. What I would like to do for even the Handsworth track replacement is see what the other options are. We need to be able to encourage more participation, grow our economy in different ways to see if we can have different competitions here. Peter mentioned Norgate. Is that an option for development for some more either turf fields or some track and field? Sports is a passion of mine. I play it, I watch it, maybe a little bit more than I should, but it's something that I commit to.
Lisa Murray, here is your question. Why are there no green spaces in the Edgemont Village concentration of high density? Did you vote for it?
Did you vote for it, Lisa?
I didn't vote for anything. Come and talk to me, whoever wrote that question. Well, that's one of the issues in regards to the Delbrook area. In the Edgemont on the Capilano corridor, when you get to the Cleveland Dam, there's Metro Vancouver, there's the Water District, there's Capilano Regional Park, there's Grouse Mountain, the Grouse Grind. In the Delbrook area, there's very few small green space areas where you can just have passive parks. And Diana Bellhouse has been campaigning for 50 years, and we're still talking about putting a park in Delbrook. We have, a bit of funding, I understand. I talked to engineering in the budget and the finance department today. There is some money put aside for some concept planning next year. And it's something that needs to absolutely needs to be advanced because neighborhoods and communities need a place to walk to, take their kids to, and enjoy in their neighborhoods. So. As far as the voting part, I'll be available afterwards.
Thank you. Anne Morton, here is your question. How would you use the alternative approval process?
Very careful.
Rarely.
It's have we ever done it? Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm thinking, have we ever done an alternative process? But now I remember there was the one on Kirkstone Park. And if anybody lived in North Vancouver 30 years ago, and you remember doing a vote about saying that we wanted to have our parks, 5 different kinds of parks. One of them was a natural park, one of them was for concession stands, one of them was for parks and playgrounds. We had 5 different reasons for parks. And we said we would not remove land from parks without the approvals of the District of North Vancouver's residents.
Yeah.
We said we would do that. And then, twice now, there's been the opportunity, once at Bridgman Park and once at Kirkstone Park. At Bridgman Park, the land was removed for that extra 3 lanes on the bridge. And we were given parkland in exchange for parkland, which I thought was a little unusual, but we were given parkland on the north side of the highway for parkland on the south side of the highway. And in Kirkstone, it was said, we did it before, so it's okay to do it again. And so they did it again, and they took away parkland and put that for a pathway, which is a paved pathway. I believe it's at 20 feet across. Thank you. I didn't know. So Anne Morton.
Robin Hicks, here's your question. How should sale of cannabis in the DNV go down?
I've never smoked in my life. Not even a cigarette. I do drink. I like beer. I like beer a lot. And I play rugby, and I like beer. Who said something like that? Cannabis. I support freedom of use for medicinal purposes and recreation, but we've got to be very careful how we implement it. And I believe we're going to have a study done, and then we'll come out with recommendations for how and where it's sold. It's got to be in areas away from schools and children access, and the smoke from cannabis, I think, is worse than normal cigarettes or cigars. So I just think we've got to be very careful in how we implement it. It's going through, and if we can get some money out of it to put back into the community, all the better.
John Harvey, here is your question. How will you prevent development from exceeding infrastructure capacity?
Sorry?
How will you prevent development from exceeding infrastructure capacity?
Yep. How will you
I don't really know this answer. How to? I would like to support Diana Bellhouse on a moratorium, and completely, except for certain circumstances like Kawani Towers at Lynn Valley there, where they're building it next door for seniors and that, and it doesn't interfere with the traffic. Apart from that, as I say, the OCP coming up, or should be coming up, would be a key feature to what should happen from 2019 onwards. And really, there should be a real downturn in developments completely. So it should not exceed anything. It should be pretty well reduced like crazy.
Thank you.
Jim Hansen, here's your question. Affordable housing is an oxymoron. Who is eligible for this? Doesn't it fly in the face of open market?
Well, this lies at the very heart of the challenge that we're facing right now. We've allowed the market to determine the category of housing that's being built. And when the market makes decisions quite correctly for itself, it builds housing that creates the greatest profit. But the housing that creates the greatest profit isn't necessarily the housing that addresses the greatest community need. So if we're going to talk about affordable housing, and I define affordable housing as being housing that people who live and work in North Vancouver in the jobs that we need to fill our economy, those people that they can afford. That's affordable housing, people who live here and work here. If we're going to create affordable housing, we can't leave it to the market. We have to intervene and we have to come up with structures. I brought forward a motion to use district land to underscore affordable housing. In the old days, we used to have co-ops. We used to have the federal government involved. We have to partner with the provincial government. That's how we create affordable housing.
Carry forward, here's your question. The City of North Vancouver has proposed to build a beautiful recreational facility at Harry Jerome. I've heard that the present council is opposed to sharing the operational cost under the present Rec Commission formula. If elected, what would be your position on this subject?
Very interesting question. I'll talk about Harry Jerome. I think Harry Jerome, the city and the district weren't together on this. There's been lots of talk about what this facility, and the city has committed to building it without the district being involved. So I think it's very, very difficult to ask the residents and the community to support this when we haven't had a real say in this. I want to, I mean, Harry Jerome will be a nice facility. We're all going to use it. We have to get together. We have to work together on these things. We can't be doing them in isolation. And it's something I wanted to talk about the track and the soccer fields. I think we need to find a place for the track. It's Handsworth is a great new building is going to be going up there, and the track is not going to work up there. They've got a space for the track, so we need to find a place for it. And the turf fields, we need more turf fields. They get high use. I've been committed to building turf fields since the Sutherland turf field went up, and I will continue to do so, and also prioritize grass fields.
Betty Forbes, here's your question. Are you aware of the need for an 8-lane track and field facility, and are you in support of building one in North Vancouver?
The need?
I'll leave it here.
No. I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. I'm not aware of the need, but I know that track and field is struggling, like up at Handsworth, that field is being, will shortly be non-usable. And the other location besides Norgate that I've heard about that field could be moved to is up by the Lucas Centre. And there's flat land on the Lucas Centre, so a field could be developed in there. That's about all I can say.
This time of night, I'm all for short answers. Mark.
Yes.
Mark Elliott. Why not reinstitute school buses and eliminate the huge traffic congestion caused by each parent during driving their offspring to and from school? It's ridiculous. Now, we are starting to get, well, we've actually had many repeat questions. You just couldn't detect them before. And we will be going through now real repeats.
I have 2 kids, and they both go to school, and one of the problems that my son has going to Carson, we live up at the very top above Braemar, and so the bus to Carson is inconvenient. There's no buses that actually go down 23rd and get anywhere near Carson. So buses are, that's part of the whole transit problem that we have. I'd love to be able to do school buses in certain areas where it's hard for kids to get to schools. It's a lot of money, so you have to try and partner up with the province and the school boards, if possible, to solve that sort of solution. I try and encourage my kids to walk as much as they can, especially when it's safe. My son can still go down to Carson. He can get across the overpass at Jones Avenue to get to Carson, and so I try and encourage them to walk as much as possible as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda Finley, this is actually not a duplicate, but it...
Oh, dear. Lucky me.
Zoning. Why allow developers to take down a 2,500 square foot home and build a 5,000 square foot monster?
That all has to do with FSR. Why allow them to do it? Well, because the zoning says they can. I'm not saying it's something that you should do. I certainly don't think we need to do that type of thing. They're all, of course, have their basement suites, etc., that go in them as well. But I have to say that I find that the design of some of these homes is pretty brutal. They're just boxes. There's no thought put into how they look. So I don't think I would allow it if I could get away with it. But it all has to do with what the zoning does allow already in the district. And I just want to say, it's really nerve-wracking coming up and answering a question you don't know the answer to, so well done, well done, really, truly. And I have to just take a second to thank all of these people for running. It takes a lot of guts to get up here, and it's very nerve-wracking, and I really think that everybody deserves a round of applause for even doing that.
Okay, now we are really truly into duplicates.
Can I choose mine?
No, sorry. Phil Paquier, are you aware of the need for an 8-lane track? It's the one you wanted! It's the one I wanted! There you go.
I'm Phil DeBacke, running for council. Yes, I'm aware of the need for the 8-lane track. I have 3 daughters that have all graduated from high school. They've all gone to Handsworth and done their thing, and they've all had to run over to Swangard to do the track and field. We need these kind of facilities. We need community facilities. This is community amenity. Looking at Norgate for an area is great. Working with the city, maybe around the where Harry Jerome is, or even a little further down where Burdett is, in that kind of space. But we need these facilities. I'm passionate about sports. I'm passionate about activity, and anything we can do to tie our youth into this is good. So let's make it a priority. Thank you.
Megan, you get the how should sale of cannabis in the DNV?
Yeah, well, it should happen at my store. The sale of cannabis